Good afternoon, everybody. Glad you could join us for our last convocation of the semester. We're really excited to have Jocelyn Hagan and Tim Tkach with us. And I'm going to have Kyle give you a couple of technical things, and then I'll introduce Jocelyn and Tim. So go ahead, Kyle. That was maybe not the right way to do that. Okay, so most of you know Jocelyn and Tim because Jocelyn has done conducting composition classes with us for many years, and you know of them from their publishing company Graphite, and from both of them. If you're a choral musician, you certainly know them because we've sung music of both Jocelyn and Tim almost every year for the last many years. They are also not just Minnesota natives, but they're treasures throughout the whole country. And one of my favorite pieces I heard a couple years ago, Jocelyn, was the commission that was premiered in Spain at the International Federation of Choral Musicians. That was awesome. So they're going to talk to you about maybe things about staying motivated as you work from home, how to be creative, maybe what the pandemic means for musicians or for new kinds of music that might be in the future for us all. And so without any more talking, I would like to give them the floor. Welcome, and thanks for being with us.
Hi there. It's so great to be back at NDSU in a virtual way. And we definitely have some things we are excited to talk with you about today, and you'll have a chance to ask some questions too. But we thought we'd actually start by singing you a song because, you know, that's what we do, and you might be missing a little music at this time. And Nation, we've been working hard at Nation. We did a couple of shows this winter and had more planned for the spring. But we arranged some new songs, so we thought you might like this one.
1, 2, 3. Hey, 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 hey. She's got a smile and it seems to me reminds me of childhood memories where everything was as fresh as the bright blue sky. Now and then when I see her face, she takes me away to that special place. And if I stay too long, I'd probably break down and cry. Whoa, sweet child of mine. Oh, sweet love of mine. She's got eyes of the bluest skies, as if they thought of rain. I'd hate to look into those eyes and see an ounce of pain. Her hair reminds me of a warm, safe place where as a child I'd hide. I pray for the thunder and the rain to quietly pass me by. Oh, sweet child of mine. Oh, sweet love of mine. Hey, hey, hey,
Where do we go now, sweet child of mine? Where do we go?
Where do we go, sweet child of mine?
Where do we go?
Where do we go?
Sweet child of mine. Where do we go now?
Where do never thought I'd get a chance to sing Guns N' Roses. I don't think at any point in my life did I think. But that was a sort of a new arrangement this season of Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses.
Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and you will have a chance to ask questions about that later if you want to. But I thought I'd dive right into one of the first big questions that Joanne and I talked about, and that was how to stay motivated and creative in this time of uncertainty and crisis. And I wish I had a straight up, like, easy answer to that question, but I don't. And in terms of that, and when you're thinking about, you know, graduating from school in music, you're going to have to find a way to be motivated at many times when maybe you aren't really quite feeling it. You have to think of it kind of like just how you get up and you practice your instrument, and that's something that you are dedicated to and you do it, you know, every day. That's how we treat our composing. You know, we wake up every morning and we get to work on it right away. And I think making it a habit, making it a creative habit, and also knowing when your prime time of day is. For both Tim and me, I think it's morning. So we wake up in the morning, and that's when we do our most creative work. You might not be a morning person. That's okay. One of my best friends is another composer, and she's not a morning person at all. She's a nighttime person. She's a night owl. So she often will be writing into the night. But she knows that about herself. And so she'll prepare accordingly. So if you can kind of find your sweet spot in terms of when it's easiest for you to be creative and when you enjoy it the most, figuring that out, I think, is a good way to start this. And so experiment with that. Say, okay, this week I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do my creative work or my practicing, whatever, from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. By the way, this is also how I figured out when I need to work out. If I don't work out between 10 a.m. and noon in any given day, it ain't going to happen. That is like my prime time of when I need to do any kind of weightlifting or going for a run, because otherwise my body just, it's not ready. It just doesn't want to do it. So, and the same is true of creative work. So try it in the morning, try it in the afternoon. I know I was talking to Dale Trembore the other day, another wonderful composer, and she's an afternoon composer. So that's when she does it. And then, yeah, Abby Bettinas, my dear friend, works into the night. One of my favorite stories about Abby, we used to actually live together as roommates right after college. And I'm a morning person. I'd wake up and be writing music, sometimes really early. Sometimes I naturally wake up early and then just get to work. And she will sometimes stay up so late that there have been several times that we've overlapped at that like 4 a.m. spot when I'm up and raring to go and she's still burning that candle, doing it. So, you know, I think trying to pinpoint when is your best time of day to be creative, and then aim for that every day. And what I do, because we work from home, we're composers. So, you know, we, on a good day when we're not traveling or, you know, doing stuff, but most days we are at home. And so we do have to schedule our time and be kind of diligent about that, because otherwise it'd be really easy to just not do that. I
love that idea of making it a habit. And that's what I was going to say as well. Really carving out that time and making sure that you show up every day. You're only going to get better if you keep doing it. And because creative work is hard work, it's easy for us to put it off and say, oh, I don't feel quite up to it yet, or I'm not in the right mental mood to do it, so I'll just do it later. And then all of a sudden it's tomorrow and you've missed it. So to really find that time and set it aside. I grew up, or not even grow up, I cut my teeth in my early composing career with very limited chances to write. I had a full-time job as a singer, and so I had to squeeze composing in whenever I could. And so that meant like during half-an-hour breaks from rehearsals, or it meant if we were on the road, stealing 20 to 40 minutes on the stage behind the curtain on the piano, in between dinner and the concert time, or coming home late at night and doing it. So I had to like find these times, and it taught me the efficiency of just being able to write whenever you could. But what I didn't realize is the flip side of that coin is when you're in a position like you are now, where maybe you've got more time than you thought was possible in your life, what then? Because it's when I feel like if you're a busy person, it's really easy to stay busy all the time and fill each minute with something. But then if you're all of a sudden presented with a day full of time and you're in charge of it and you get to decide what to do, sometimes it's really hard to find the time for those important things and the hard work as well. And so I've found a real benefit moving to composing full time, and then especially this spring, I found a real benefit in carving out a time and making it sacred and treating it like I get to write at that point. It's not like I have to and it's on my to-do list and I got to get it out of the way, but that is the hour when I'm allowed to write, and it's my time and it's my space. And I like to go down, I'm in the basement, and so I like to go down to the basement, and if I can have a cup of tea and, you know, my favorite sweatshirt on, and just, I make it about me and I make it about my time to be creative. And that really helps me focus in on what I'm supposed to do. The other thing that I've found really beneficial is having a specific place to do specific kinds of work. Because I have that corner of the basement with a keyboard and my headphones and a speaker and my pencil, like all my stuff is right there. I don't have my computer with me. I don't usually have my phone close by. I try to save that space, that physical space for writing, so that when I'm there, I know exactly what I want to do. And I've been that way for a number of years, where if I'm on campus somewhere away from home and I want to get some work done, people will often try to find me the prettiest practice room, or the one with the best view, or with the art on the walls. And I say, no, all I really want is like an 8x8 foot room with a piano in it, and like nothing else. Don't give me anything, because then I know that's why I'm there and I'm not distracted by anything else.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I adopted early on was a reward system. So I often, because you have your favorite moments of a day, right? Like when the kids are in school, one of my favorite things is lunch in front of the TV, because, you know, once the kids get home from school, it's kind of all about them, and we do dinner as a family and all that. But man, I love getting to watch my show at lunchtime and sit with my little TV tray. And it's just like my own private thing, and I absolutely love it. And so most of the time I reserve that for myself. So it also is like, oh, come on, just get through that morning composing time and productive time, and then you'll get your break. There are other things I love, like I play a board game on my tablet. So I usually, like, we'll have a goal, like I'll sit in that email and be like, okay, I'm going to do 5 emails, and then I'm going to let myself go sit and do something else. But having that kind of little bit of reward system for yourself is not a bad idea. My friend Abby actually will sometimes sit at the piano with her manuscript paper and a small bowl of chocolate chips. And she'll write like a measure and then be like, I earned 2. And then she'll suck on them and think and keep going.
I've tried the same thing this spring with video games, because I like video games, and I don't ever really get a chance to play them that often because of life and family, and we watch movies and play board games and stuff. And video games is a very selfish, like nobody else can be there, and I don't want my kids in the room when I'm playing it. So I decided this spring that was going to be my reward. So when Jocelyn is upstairs in front of the TV with her show, if I've written for 90 minutes that morning, I earn the chance to play a video game during my lunch hour. And so it's like, if I didn't write that morning, well, you blew it, buddy. You get to just read a book or just sit there and look out the window. But if I want to play my game, I got to do the writing first. And that's been pretty helpful too. And it gets me out of the way so Jocelyn can enjoy her show on her own, because Hellfire shows up if anybody gets in the way of Jocelyn and her lunch and her TV show at noon.
Yeah. And it's your time. It's your time down there.
It is. And up here, it's your time.
Up here, it's my time.
It's your time up here. That's from the Goonies, all you youngins who don't know.
Oh, I bet they know.
I hope you know. And if anybody asks you if you knew, you say yes. There's another thing I was going to say. Oh, I think that I think that it's sort of the reward system, but it's also just about pacing out your day. I have a tendency to dive into work and really get bombarded and sort of overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that I should be doing and can do. I tend to, I'll open up an email to write somebody back, and in the midst of that email, I'll need a piece of information. And as I go search for that information, I'll realize that I left something unfinished in this folder. I'll say, oh yeah, I got to finish that too. And I'll open up that document and start editing that. And in the midst of that, I say, oh yeah, but I need this resource to finish that. And that resource opens up. And within 15 minutes, I've got like 4 things that I'm sort of halfway in. And then I go back and say, oh yeah, I was going to send this email this morning at 8:30 and it's still unfinished and it's 11 o'clock. And I'm so overwhelmed by all the stuff that I will dive in and I won't come up for air for hours at a time. And that's not necessarily healthy for your brain or for your body. And so I'm also trying to be better about allowing myself to take a break and to get up and walk around, or go, like today I went outside and I jumped rope for 15 minutes just to like get my body going and to get out of the house and like let my boys argue in the silence of the basement while I was outside. But just to allow yourself those minutes to yourself to sort of recharge and relax, and then come back with a fresh brain and sort of have at it again. I guess I'm also advocating for non-multitasking if you actually want to get anything done.
Yeah, so 2 things to piggyback on that from what he said. 1, don't get too sedentary. And boy, we are all getting a bit sedentary right now and gaining a little weight because we're baking. We have time to do that. So, and I found that actually sugar doesn't help my mood. So if you're going to sit, like as a composer, I sit at the piano bench and then here I am sitting at my computer. Get up at least once or twice an hour to just move around a bit, We have boys, so we're constantly cleaning. And I try to think of that, this is a good thing. I'm moving my body around. I'm squatting and picking this up again and again and putting it away, just all of those things. I've always been a big, what's the word? Proponent of moving the body to get the brain going. So I do really think that helps, especially if you're stuck on a problem mentally. Get up and move around. And now, thankfully, that it's getting to be nicer outside, actually get outside and go for a walk. I mean, yeah, find any excuse to go outside and go for a walk if you can. The other thing that Tim was talking about was the whole scheduling thing. And I totally agree. And maybe start in baby steps. Like, okay, so I've located, this is my prime time of day to be creative. Great. Now I'm going to schedule everything else around that, right? And one of the very first things we did once this pandemic hit was, and the kids were going to be home, and we went, oh my goodness, how are we going to do this? Was we created a schedule for them. And I actually have a copy of it right here. Is this backwards on your screen? No, so you can see it. So we know that our boys, more than anything in the world, love to wake up, and especially Milo doesn't even like to get out of his pajamas and play their screens. So we start every day off with a bang and knowing that they're going to be happy by saying, okay, you get that hour of screen time. And if that's what you need as a person, like if you need to wake up and like, I'm definitely a coffee and quick run through of my email first thing kind of person. So that's kind of their equivalent of that, I think.
That also coincides with our best time to write music. And that was not by mistake.
No. So they get up, they go do their screens, and we get to write. It's beautiful. And then they do, they're checking with teachers. They have writing. They have independent quiet time. Snack. This we learned was a very important thing. Although I find that snack time hits more times a day than just twice.
They're just always hungry.
I think they're growing.
Always hungry.
But yeah. So, and so there are a bunch of things that are rewards. And we find that, as it gets towards dinner, they have a tougher time focusing and concentrating. So the more fun things for them are in this time around here. And the more work stuff is pretty preloaded here. And I'm guessing that you found that kind of in college too, right? Figuring out when you like to have certain classes or when you like to do your homework, so you're getting to know yourself and your brain. And so sometimes it just takes a little thought to, this is not overkill to actually sit down and write it out. And, we have one of these posted on our fridge. And we even had Alexa doing little reminders.
Yeah, Alexa reminds us when it's time to move stations. Can I go on a tangent a little bit?
Sure.
So talking about the arts and talking about what we do as musicians and people, just about everything that we do has been shaken up this spring. And a lot of what we do revolves around coming together, being in the same place, making music together with each other, making music together with each other for a large group of other people who are sitting very close together. That's all in jeopardy now. And what I love about music is that it is a service, it's a gift to others, and that what we do because we love it, and we do it partially for ourselves, but we also do it for other people. And I feel like the biggest thing that's hit me is that what happens when there's no other people, like when there's nobody ready to get together to rehearse this or to perform it. And I think there are some groups where their real joy lies in the fact that they get together every week or every day to rehearse, and the sense of community is almost just as important as the actual music making. I love that about the arts. And I think that this is a time that I'm realizing that I'm able to sort of turn that lens inward into myself and say, okay, well, how can I use this time to benefit myself? Rather than giving my talents and giving my time to others in the form of rehearsals or conducting or composing or whatever, can I dig deep and spend some time looking at myself and trying to engage my loves, my interests, and my hobbies, and trying to improve upon them or trying to expand upon them, and really taking my life and enriching it with something new, or finding something that maybe has gotten short shrift in the past as far as the schedule has come, and find just a little bit more time in that, so that at the end of whatever this is, I'm coming out with a stronger sense of who I am and what I love. And I also maybe have a better sense of priorities in my life. And so rather than taking 10 minutes or 15 minutes and playing a game on my phone or just scrolling through a feed, instead I might sit down and pick up my electric bass and play through some things. Or I might pick up my sketchbook and draw a little bit. I'm relearning the things that I love and the things that have sort of fallen off my plate as life has gotten more complex. So we're coming from a time in probably everybody's life where we might be overworked, overbooked, and overscheduled. And now sometimes we're presented with these days that can go on forever without a point. Make it a point to invest in yourself, so that on the flip side, when we're ready to get back together with other people and to share our gifts and our talents with other people, we have a better sense of who we are, and we have a more honest sense of music making at that side of things.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I've kind of been thinking of it as the great American slowdown, in just this idea that, because I was definitely one of those people that was overbooked and overcommitted, and it did not make me happy. I had some big projects going on, and I knew I needed to be visible for them. And because, you know, being visible as a female composer is very important to me, the representation in that. So I feel like it's a good part of and a necessary part of my job that I am actually out in the world, being visible for people to see. But it was too much. Like I was saying before the meeting started, I think I was supposed to go to 11 different states this spring, like within a span of about 6 weeks, which is a lot, which is too much. It was going to be hard on me. And so now I'm thinking, you know, and I feel like there have been many different stages of grief during this time, which is really what's happening. The whole world is grieving. Some are grieving because they've actually lost a loved one. Many of us are grieving everything that we had planned for this time. You know, I can't imagine being a senior in high school right now, how hard that would be. Seniors in college, I'm sure you guys are having a tough time too. I totally get that. So we're all in this stage of grief, in these different stages of grief, I should say. And I hope that we're all spending time evaluating our priorities, so that what's interesting about this is the nature of the pandemic and how things will reopen slowly. I think that that's how everything has to happen in your personal life as well. And that with everything that you add back into your life, that you have chosen it because you absolutely can't live without it, or because it's so important to you, and figuring out where that line is and figuring out where to draw it. I think I'm going to be very careful about where I draw that line. And yeah, I just think it's an important thing for all of us to ponder right now, in this time. One of the funniest things I saw about the stages of grief for this pandemic was relating it to different cartoon bears. So like the first one was the Berenstain Bear family. That's the first stage, which is kind of denial, right? And I totally think that was us. Like we had our schedule. We're like, we're going to get stuff done. We're going to get the garage in good shape. Like we're going to do all these things, right? So that was stage one. And yeah, that worked out pretty well. And then stage two hits. And it's like, and that was me mid-April. It was also my birthday on April 19th. And I turned 40, which is a pretty big birthday. At least it's not over the hill anymore. I remember when my parents were 40, that was the big thing, was saying you're over the hill. But anyway, my 40th birthday this year was going to be a very special thing. I was going to have the Notebooks of Leonardo da Vinci done at Carnegie Hall on my birthday. And so coming to terms with the fact that none of that was going to happen, and just turning another year older and all of that, I was really down. And so this was the second stage of grief, and that is Pooh Bear, which basically means no pants, too many sweets, too much sugar. And I thought that was the funniest thing ever, and so true. But yeah, now I feel like we're in the next stage, at least we are here in our house, where things are kind of getting back to a little bit more of a new normal. You know, it's new normal. That's going to be an interesting term for a long time. But like trying to get the productivity back up to, I feel like I'm running at about a third in terms of productivity, where I am usually. Because I'm usually able to write music pretty fast, and it's going slower right now.
So what bear is that?
Oh gosh,
Do
what
you
is
remember?
it? I don't remember the third bear.
Basically, the bears kept losing articles of clothing and getting, because like what it wasn't a
Yogi Bear was just a bow tie.
It's just a bow tie. You'd probably find it online. Just search for cartoon bears and grief and pandemic. I'm sure it'll come up. That wasn't a very good representation of the comic, but it's true. There are stages.
Yeah, the no pants and lots of sugar was just too true. It was just so funny. I mean, pajama pants for me, but yeah. Anyway, I guess we're about halfway through our time. Do you guys want to start asking us questions? Anyone have any?
So you can, you can write them, I think, in the chat, or you can speak up if you're one of the student council members. Well, I'll start. How about talking about, have you adapted the kinds of ensembles that you're writing for yet? Have you seen that start to change?
You know, not really yet, because we're booked out so far. So most of our deadlines that were scheduled for now are still happening, and because they're for next year, and everyone is still crossing their fingers that all of them will happen as they plan. Although I will say that we decided to start a round, because we wrote a round last year, and it's called A Path to Each Other, and it really took off. A lot of people have done it, and that was really exciting to just see that. And we're like, man, we need to write more of those rounds. So we decided that now is a good time to write another round, because it's something that you can do in small groups. And yeah, I feel like I should be writing solo music, and I'd love to. But yeah, my plate is still full. It'll be interesting to ask this question in a year from now, because right now everyone who commissions us is basically using the funding from last season, or you know what I mean? Yeah. So now that this year's funding is drying up, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future, we've talked about that many times, that really we don't know in about a year from now what what it's going to look like. And so that's kind of.
And for us, we have to be flexible and open about what our work might look like. We're used to a very specific kind of work day and season where, when we're at home, we're writing music, and when we're not, we're out going to premieres and lecturing and being residents. And that might all change for a while. And so what other skills do we have in the meantime that we can leverage to keep making a living? Part of our plate is also selling sheet music. But if choirs aren't getting together to perform, I don't know who will be buying sheet music and how much. We have no idea. So we're looking at Nation, the two of us, and thinking, well, we're quarantined together and we're a band together. So maybe we should be focusing on that and writing music and recording music and performing as Nation. Whereas a lot of people can't get together to do that. We can. So we might start to do more of that, either digitally or see if we can put together small house concerts if things loosen up a bit. But yeah, I've thought about what the future of commissioning might look like and writing for smaller ensembles. The tough thing is that those smaller ensembles don't necessarily have the commissioning funds to be able to afford it. So does that mean our fees go down, or does that mean people need to sort of reallocate where their funding is going to? I don't know. It's all a big blur. But I have mentally and creatively, I haven't shifted over into, I'm writing this new piece for this ensemble. I should probably write it so that a quartet could sing it. Maybe that would be smart of me to do at this point, thinking about one on a voice part, no more than 6 parts. But I haven't quite got there. Part of me is still thinking, well, if the choir doesn't get to do this in the fall, maybe they'll do it in the spring, or they're planning to do it in the spring already. So maybe we'll all be back together by then. I just don't know. So yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, well, and also we've brought Peter John and Cicely Parnas. Peter John is Spearfisher, who some of you maybe did Hummingbird. Are there still some singers? Yeah. But yeah, so for him, he's doubling down on electronic music production and working on uploading a pretty hefty library for syncing possibility for TV and movies and all that. So that's what and I think that there's a lot of that you can kind of focus on, just like getting creative as to how what you do can fit into what the new normal might be. And also learning some new skills. This is a good time to be doing that kind of thing.
I actually have a question. How do you guys keep yourselves accountable? I know you have your reward system and your little treats and things like that, but how do you keep yourself accountable, especially like I live by myself, so it's really just all on me. I was wondering if you had any tips or tricks for someone in that situation.
I gotta say, part of my motivation is knowing that he's right here and could judge me.
Maybe I already am. Good.
But no, maybe it's worth having a buddy to check in on, to be like, hey, how are you? That's not a bad idea in this time right now anyway, is to have someone to say, here are the things I'm doing. Let's connect in a week, and what are you working on? And so have it go both ways and be that support buddy for each other. I
would say more than a week. I would say a couple times a week. I think just human interaction that's not digital, I think is really important. We found a lot of benefit from seeing Jocelyn work hard and think, oh yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be doing if I'm not, and just talking on the phone with friends, which is a hard thing to find this day and age, but actually calling somebody up and just hearing their voice and talking about and being able to sort of dump onto them and just say, here's all the things I'm thinking about, and maybe not seeking a response or maybe looking for a sounding board, but just trying to find somebody that can listen and say, yeah, it sounds like you're doing the right things, you're just unmotivated, or it sounds like you need this, or maybe as soon as you say it out loud, you'll realize what you should be doing instead. But I think people are often really contagious with inspiration, motivation. Real people, not necessarily a text.
Yeah, and I have mixed feelings on social media in general, because I think sometimes that can make you feel worse instead of better. And so I would just know how you respond to that and know if it's a good or a bad thing for you. I've found that I much prefer Instagram and TikTok to Facebook. I can watch people dance all day.
And I think some people do really well with goals, not necessarily the day-to-day reward system, but like a long-term plan and saying, okay, well, it's May right now, and where do I want to be in August? And what do I want to have accomplished? This is what I know is going to happen in those 3 months. This is what I don't know. But at the end of it, I want to have done whatever it is. There's a friend of mine is an artist, and she's done a couple of times. She's done a 100-day challenge where she's challenged herself to get up and draw or paint every single day for 100 days. And she has specific parameters that she sets for herself as far as what that image should be or shouldn't be, or the guidelines. But she just checks in every day. And so that's holding yourself accountable, not by reward, but just by saying, I'm going to set this goal for myself and I really want to achieve it.
I work very well with reward systems or things. If I'm able to like check something off a list, I love lists, and I have to do them paper and pencil, yeah, exactly. Digitally does not work for me. I have to write it down and then cross it off. And then another thing that I started last year that I've totally fallen in love with, and it's kind of fallen by the wayside now because my schedule has changed so much, but I have planners with like stickers, and I use different color pens, and I just, I spend a lot of time doing this, and it actually brings me tons of joy to plan it all out. And like right now, just yesterday, 2 days ago, I created a new chart for myself in the bathroom of all my like daily goals. And it's things like, did you call someone up today? Did you have a conversation with someone you care about today? Things like that.
That's not me.
That's not Tim. Tim doesn't count.
Not for that.
But yeah, things like that. And then, because I just love, and I'm hoping then at the end of May, I'll look back and I'll just see a bunch of check marks. I'll be like, okay, I did it. And I'm hopefully working towards more great habits.
Thank you. That was really wonderful.
Good.
We actually have a question on the...
Joanne, you're muted.
We actually have a question on the video chat.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Sharp has asked, have either Tim or Jocelyn seen any changes in their compositional style amongst their grief? And have you guys started any compositions that you previously wouldn't have had time to work on?
I don't know if my style has changed much at all. I feel like I'm still same music. I mean, I'm always trying to write different music, but I feel like it's coming from the same place. I don't know that this has influenced that at all.
Yeah, I don't think we would have sat down to write that round if we didn't.
Maybe not.
So that is new. I have a commission right now from Conspirare that is it's a project because Beethoven, the 250th anniversary, whatever is this year, and so. And it's based on this. He's doing 2 concerts based on the late string quartets. And the last conversation I had with him, we were talking about and I said, I have a tough time thinking about how our current situation wouldn't affect what I'm writing. And he's like, go for it. Think. And I think I have this great idea that's based on what we're doing right now. It's based on spacing. So thinking about how the singers are spaced and how they maybe even move around the stage a bit, and then also to incorporate the string quartet players and spacing them also in a way that that highlights inequality, because that's been one of the hardest things for me personally in terms of this pandemic is that it's it's unequal, right? You know, we've got the really rich are holed up in like vacation style places, and a lot of the middle class are home with their kids at home, wondering how to work, and then there are all the people that are on the front line, and the people that, you know, are just the rates of infection of COVID-19 with Latino and African American, it's just so much higher. So that's been a really tough thing for me to swallow in the midst of all this. And so I'm going to be writing music this summer that reflects on that. So yeah, I think it will change. And I think that's actually part of our job as artists. I think we often turn to art when we feel a certain way and we don't know how to, when we feel a certain way and we don't know how to talk about it or can't put it into words. I think art helps us process all that. And so, so that's what I'm working on.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What have you heard from your colleagues about, your choral colleagues about how, or any, doesn't have to be choral, but of the plans they're making for ensembles for the fall? I mean, it's all over Facebook, all of the doom and gloom, plus all of the, these are some things we might do, and they all seem so complicated, when what we really do is so simple.
Yeah.
Has been.
I think everybody is trying to respond and scramble and change plans and have multiple plans. The people that I've talked to have some interesting thoughts about concert venues and where to put people and how to rehearse. But yeah, it does. It feels complicated in a way that it's driven by external factors and not by the art. You know, I feel like there's a great chance that the art will suffer because the specific parameters of getting together is so tight, you know? And so I don't know what it would feel like to be an audience member and to sit, you know, kind of by yourself in a row. It's like, you know, one of the movie theaters that's not full and you just have these spots of people throughout the room. And then if the choir is not singing at us, but singing above us or in a different part of the room, I'm just unsure what that would feel like as an audience member. You know, I think there's a great surge in the use of technology these days, which I think is bringing a lot of people joy on the consumption side of things. A lot of people are enjoying seeing that media come out, but it's not a lot of fun to make. And I think part of the joy of making music is doing it together, if that's its intent. And so I've been part of groups that have recorded their parts separately and then put it all together in the last couple of weeks. And that's not a ton of fun to do, but it brings joy on the flip side of things. So then you have to say, okay, well, I'm sacrificing my own selfish joy of making it so that somebody else can get joy in the consumption of it. And there's value there, right? We shouldn't say no to that because it's not fun to make or it requires a lot of bells and whistles. But that can't be the be all and end all of consuming ensemble music.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, it's tricky.
There's no easy answers right now. Who else has a question?
Jocelyn, I was wondering if you could talk on like how, like this is not relating to the pandemic at all, but like how your career has kind of shifted, like now that women are more on the forefront of music right now, you know, based to maybe where it was when you graduated undergrad. How has that changed, and like how is that like, you know, taking off and being like exciting? And is there anything that's still like really holding like women back in the industry that you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think we're there yet. You know, I think we're definitely still working on things, and I think there are a lot more conductors that are really wanting to do that and to program women and minorities, and you know, just make everything more diverse. I think that a lot of people are working towards that, and with the right intention at the heart of it. And that I think is a wonderful, beautiful step. It's amazing to me though, even still, that I I go and I do a lot of residencies at universities, and I often will do a composition masterclass, and it is still predominantly male. Almost every time I go to one of these things, there just aren't many young women who decide they want to tackle composition, and so I'm working hard trying to figure out how I can help change that. And I think being visible is part of it, and the fact that women are programmed more is great, so people are noticing. But yeah, so representation is important. But yeah, there's still, it is, there are a lot of things that are different from when I went to school. I think when I was in school, I was getting my master's. I graduated with my master's in 2006. And it surprised me how at that level, things were still very old school at that time, like surprisingly so, especially as I look back on it. So I do think that we've come a pretty long way in terms of that, which is great. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to get more people to just try it, because it's fun.
We should talk about that. We should talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question. Have you ever considered writing anything for the French horn? Probably could go to both of you.
Well, I've written for brass quintet a few times, and I love the horn. We're actually both ex-horn players.
Oh.
And our son, Oscar, who starts 5th grade this next year, has decided to play trumpet, which we're pretty excited about. I think it fits his personality. He's loud and kind of feisty, and he's constantly walking around the house going, so like, that guy needs a trumpet. But anyway, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It's not that we don't, if we don't have something like that in our catalog, it's not because we don't want to write it. It's because we never have the opportunity. So like most of the time we're booked out, a year, sometimes 2, and just have a lot of projects happening. And yeah, it's those soloists don't have often the funds to commission. So, I wish I could write more solo music. And actually, at this point in time, it feels like I should be writing music for solo instruments, but I can't. I have to finish an opera, So we'll see but yeah, one cool thing that I have done is take some of my art songs and have had them played by instruments. Some of them work beautifully that way. Not all of them, but if you really are interested in finding a song for horn, yeah, we could probably make an old art song work. Might have to transpose it, but.
Great. Who else has a question?
Just something that Lauren made me think of now. Do you have any organizations that you would recommend that really put women in music on the forefront? I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm just curious.
Any organizations? Well, there's what's it called? I'm not a member of it, but it's a Women's Music Network International. There is one, and they do a bunch of composition awards every year. There, I think I joined one year just to apply and didn't win, but it's hard because there's so many, especially as a composer, you could be a part of so many different organizations, right? Because there's the one that's actually for composition, like the American Composers Forum, which is probably the best one for composers to be a part of. But then there's like New Music USA, which doesn't require a membership, I guess. But we're also an ACDA, and the College Band Directors Association. So like as a composer, you could be in all of these because if you're writing for all those different types of groups, and Chamber Music America.
I feel like if you were looking for that, if I was looking for that, knowing that there's probably few out there, I would probably go to a business network that empowers female business people and approach them as a musician and say, how can I fit in? Or do you have resources that can benefit me? Because there's no reason why a musical entrepreneur should not be considered a business person, but it's not the first connection people make.
Yeah, and there's a lot of wonderful things that can happen when you start making connections outside of music too. That's how we met a lawyer that we ended up.
Yeah, there's more money
Yeah,
in those circles. Well, aren't there like Greek societies that focus on that?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, there are a number of different groups you can get involved in, and so I just keep your eyes and ears open for that kind of thing, and don't be afraid if you don't feel like you fit in because it's music or art. Remember that you are a business person, and you are, So.
And it's your chance to bring what you do in your sphere of influence to that crowd. You know, I sang in a volunteer chorus for a while, about 10 years ago, and I met, I think he's in the sort of businessy world at some point, and we ended up talking about composition, and a year later he commissioned me to write a song for his wife's anniversary, or their anniversary, because he's like, I've run out of jewelry to buy, and I don't know what's special to give her anymore. And he's like, I thought maybe a song. I said, that's a great reason to commission. And because it's just you and your guitar, it's not going to be very expensive compared to other things that I've done. But it brought a little bit of my world into his in a sort of a unique way.
Yeah. There was a composer who was thinking. Sorry.
Thank both Tim and Jocelyn for this afternoon and being here. I'm going to leave you with two thoughts, and then I have to bow out because I have to go and participate in a set of graduate comps that is going to go on in less than 5 minutes. So two thoughts I had when you all were talking and doing what you were doing, and this might be something that you might want to react to, or not. One of our faculty members in voice does not want to continue doing things the way that we're doing and have to be dealing with distance kinds of instruction, and yet has said that they believe that their students are actually making more progress vocally, technically, with the lessons that they're having now than under normal circumstances, and it has to do mostly with the idea of being able to have more time available and being able to focus on some things. These are obviously serious students who are taking it seriously. So that's one interesting thing. The other one is I couldn't help but thinking when you were talking about the idea of sitting down to compose and work and so forth, and you give yourself little rewards, and so I do a bar and then get a little chocolate drop and things like this. The flip side of that has to be the idea that there are parts of that compositional process and the work that you do that have to be natively inspiring and attractive to do, that you don't really need rewards for to do it. It's its own reward too, and I didn't hear much of that discussion. And I think for those of us who are in that way, it'd be interesting to hear what Kyle Vanderberg has to say as well, as far as compositional impetus and attraction to that as a discipline and an art form as well too. So with that, I'm going to bow out, and hopefully you'll all be back sooner rather than later. It was great to have you here. Okay, so if I go away, it's not because I'm stomping mad out of the room. It's because of the fact that I have to go and grill a graduate student, right?
Be nice.
Celebrate them. That's the point. Okay.
Thanks, Sean.
Bye.
Yeah, I think that's a good point he raises, that you don't necessarily need chocolate chips every day, but when things get low, and that's sort of where we started this conversation, was like, what do you do when you don't feel like it?
Yeah.
That certainly helps. And I think when you have those ideas and they're bubbling and you're excited and you know what you want to say and you know how you want to say it, you don't need a reward. You need somebody to come tell you it's time for lunch because you've been down there for 2.5 hours. Like it can be easy to get carried away and just work because you're just enjoying it and so much is coming. Yeah. Before that, we were talking about networks and businesses, and you were about to say something.
Yeah.
Is it gone now?
I think it's gone.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Well, we're almost at 3:00, so we won't take up any more of your time. Thank you so much. It's been great to connect with both of you and to hear your perspectives and lots of good ideas. I took a bunch of notes, and we hope that you have a lovely weekend and get all your work done, and hope to see you again very soon.
Sounds great.
Yes, that would
Thank
be
you for
great.
having us here and with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck,
Good to
everybody.
see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.